Welcome to our talk on educational intrapreneurs. This is a project that's been led by Bridget Fox, and I'm Susan Geertshuis. Now, an intrapreneur is somebody who works within a largish organisation, often at the coalface, without formal power to bring about change and innovation. And educational intrapreneurs are people who work within educational organisations to bring about changes in learning and teaching. Quite special people. But as you can imagine, being an intrapreneur within a university might be quite challenging. Now, despite our rhetoric, universities are known as organisations that's a little bit slow to change and maybe slow to adopt even really good ideas. A lot of the research on entrepreneurship has come from the business world. And they recognise the value of intrapreneurs, the people who have access to ideas that the more senior members of staff may not have. But a lot of the research is done at organisational level or even sector or national level in an effort to foster entrepreneurial activities across the whole organisation or whole sector. And equally, although there's not much research on entrepreneurship in universities, a lot of what is available also has an institution-wide focus and thinks about what strategies or awards or plans can we put in place to help our teaching staff or our researchers become more entrepreneurial. But Bridget was interested in the individual intrapreneur, that lone teacher with a really good idea who actually makes a difference and makes a change. And she wanted to understand how this happens. What do intrapreneurs do? Who are they? And what kind of changes can they bring about? So you can see this is a really interesting and important study that she's conducted. And in the literature, there's a notion of the entrepreneurial process as being quite seemly, or at least having an order. So people are thought to go from recognition of a problem to thinking, that could be an opportunity, and to play about with some ideas, test some ideas, and then get it adopted. And our initial conversations and feelings were that entrepreneurship is actually a messy business. And you're never quite sure how well an idea will go. And there's always lots to learn. And the institutions and different departments are quite varied and complex and hard to understand. So to get a better picture on the entrepreneurial process and to see whether it is seemly and orderly, or whether it is a little bit more messy, and if it is messy, what's the nature of this mess? Bridget conducted a longitudinal study. And so with 5 interviews spread over a whole academic year, she followed up 3 serial intrapreneurs and tracked their progress across 5 different projects. And many serial entrepreneurs have multiple projects on the go, but she limited it herself to 3 entrepreneurs and 5 projects. And she found that these entrepreneurs have a very broad knowledge base, not just about how to teach and learn, although that of course is there, but about how the institution works, who's who, what's what. And their activities are categorized here. 9 types of activity they engaged in, but socializing ideas, working with the hierarchy, socializing and moving towards mainstreaming or getting ideas adopted were dominant. This initial idea of the innovation being the thing wasn't really borne out. That seemed to be the easiest bit. But working with the people and the institutional processes was a substantial part of their role. And they were expert at it with masses of knowledge about how to articulate a project, how to make something more legitimate in different people's eyes, how to negotiate. But they didn't know it all. And what characterized many of the conversations with our entrepreneurs was the need to learn and to continuously learn. And we with the aid of these theoretical concepts, we think we've been able to capture the process, the entrepreneurial process as it happens within 2, at least, research-intensive universities. Now, if you are used to these concepts, you're probably thinking, I'm going to share with you something that's quite oversimplified. But if you've not heard about double loop learning before, you might think that this is quite complicated. So here we go. Organizations and people have espoused theories about how they're going to behave and how they're going to act in particular situations. But actually, people don't, and organizations don't, always act consistently with their ideas. Much of what we do is determined by tacit ideas, by mental models that we're not fully aware of. And this is called our theory in use. And these contradictions between an organization's espoused theory and its theory in use are a really interesting space where our intrapreneurs were very active. Now, they did a lot of learning about their own and other people's theories in use. And there are 2 types of learning that can take place according to this theory. There's single loop learning, in which when you take an action and it may not work, you will revise your action according to your theory in use. And this serves people very well. But sometimes it's not enough, because the guiding variables that you're working from, the essence of your theory, is maybe at fault. And some people will then reflect on their assumptions and their own theory and modify it. And that means engaging in double loop learning. Other people might be stuck in single loop learning, and when their learning doesn't work, rather than examine their theory, they will become defensive and possibly blame others, but they'll get stuck in that level of thinking. And reflecting on your action while you're doing it and reflecting on a series of actions is essential and an important component of double loop learning. There are different kinds of behaviours associated with single loop and double loop learning. Model 1 behaviours associated with single loop learning are more closed. People's opinions are more firm and they're less open to contradiction and ideas. Whereas model 2 behaviours are more open, more accepting of contradictions, and less defensive. We feel that our 3 serial intrapreneurs were attempting to engage in double loop learning and were learning consistently and were heavily reflective. So what we think is that you can characterize, let me move my head again, you can characterize educational entrepreneurship by thinking about model 2 type behaviors. They seem to have a model 2 type learning mindset that was very open, highly reflective, continuously inquiring. They could step aside from the problem and view it. In fact, they seem to view academics as other, although they themselves are, of course, academics. And they had this double loop approach to learning. It was informal, exploratory, and reflective, focused on deconstructing belief systems, unpacking and exposing hitherto tacit determinants of theories in use. They worked across boundaries, and they engaged in experimentation and were constantly talking, constantly asking. Now and again, just having a punt and seeing what happens. So in conclusion, we think that the process of educational entrepreneurship is indeed messy. It's spontaneous, and it's best understood as a social and communicative process supported by deep learning of a socio-cultural nature. And this challenges the traditional kind of rationalist project management type conception of innovation that has been applied by higher education scholars. And you can see from this last quote here that our entrepreneurs, testing to his deep knowledge of the university systems, structures, and espoused and theories in action, theories in use. By his quote here, it says, you work with people who understand the business side and people who understand the academic side. So often I feel like I'm a bit of a translator between the two. He's here testing to his own substantial knowledge base. Thank you. I hope you found our talk interesting. If you want to know more, here are Bridget's contact details, and she'll be delighted to help you. Thank you for listening.